Aloha YouTube, this is Kai Turner, and today I'm going to show you how my credit score went from poor all the way to excellent in only about 2.5, 3 years. And I'm going to walk you through the simple and easy way that you can build your credit and get to the exact same results I have in an easy and simple to follow method. Let's get into it.
So you're going to want to go to the App Store or the Play Store and find this app called Credit Karma and then go download it.
By the way, this is not a sponsorship. It's just the best free app that you can use for credit monitoring. As you can see from the 4.7, over 10 million downloads. Okay, so let's get into the app and I'm going to show you around. So upon opening it for the first time, they're going to ask you for your personal information, such as your social security number. This app is primarily for people in the States. So obviously if you're, abroad, it's not really the app for you, but for the States, credit is super important. So you're going to enter your information, your name, your social, different things about you, and they're going to find your profile, and essentially all the information is already going to be filled in, so you don't have to do anything else. After you've logged in for the second time, you can do it via fingerprint or anything like that, you'll get to this screen. Now, this is the new revamped system where it shows at the top your credit scores. As you can see, I'm in excellent category right now. Highest possible category you can be for credit. And good in the second category where I'm only 2 points away. And I'm probably by the end of the week, it'll be back to excellent in both categories. Because there's different bureaus that rate your credit. So there's 3 currently for most companies that want to evaluate your credit, such as for cars, houses, things like that. TransUnion is the main one. Equifax is another one. And Experian, the one that got hacked a year back, they're the third. And these 3 credit bureaus basically, piggyback off each other and to look at your different accounts and to personally evaluate how good they think you are at paying back things that you owe. So walking through the app, you'll see suggested cards based on your, credit level and things of that. I'll get like Amex and things like that all the time because, obviously I'm in an excellent category. But really what you want to notice is when you click on, let's say TransUnion, for instance, right? You'll come to this screen right here. We'll say, see what changed. So periodically, you'll have updates that show different areas of your credit that have affected it in terms of positive or negative. If you did something good, like you paid off a loan or something like that, or you put a little bit of money towards something you owe, your credit score will go up. If you do something negative, like spend money with your credit cards, things like that, your credit score will go down. And this keeps track of all of your different improvements or declines. So keeping that in mind, there's essentially 7 areas of credit. Okay, 6 or 7. We can debate on that one, but 6 areas of credit that you really want to focus on. This is the overall thing that controls how good you are for credit. This is how I got from 500 points of credit all the way up to 761. Okay, and you can see it's not always perfect. It's a straight line upwards, but this is how it happens. The first area of credit is payment history. Payment history literally means exactly what it sounds like, right? The more accounts you have, the more opportunities you have to raise this percentage. Now, if you ever miss a payment from any company, it'll bring this score down. So this is things like credit cards, auto loans, literally every account that you have. Payments are super important. This is probably the number one area of credit that they look at. It's how consistent you are paying your things, right? So for the most part, if you don't use your credit card, that automatically counts as you paid it. So you'd be at 100% for that company, right? For that month, or to bring you upwards points. So if you have multiple cards, let's say you have 5 cards and 2 cars and 3 other accounts, right? If you just keep all of those paid, that's 10 times the credit has to report back positive for your things. So they'll dramatically bring your score up. So don't look at it as if you got a 70 or 60 or something, don't look at it as impossible to bring it back up. No, you can easily bring it back up just based on having multiple accounts and paying your cards off on time. You never want to have late payments or missing payments and things of that nature. It's super important to always pay your bill on time. And it's super easy to like fall behind on this category because different accounts might get pushed off and things like that. But I'll tell you a secret later on so that you can get this back to a very high level. The number 2 most important area of credit is called credit card utilization. What does this mean? Well, it's simple. Each of your cards has a limit on it. And essentially, based on how much credit you have, reflects on how much credit you can use. Probably one of the key areas of credit that they actually look at, and it can dramatically increase or decrease your score fast, like super fast. What this means is based on how much money you have in terms of, your credit limit, how much of that are you currently using at a specific time? So I'm going to give a really easy example to say this in the most simple terms possible. Let's say you have $1,000 in credit, right? Like whether it's one card or multiple cards, right? So you have $1,000 in credit. If you spend 100 of those $1,000, right? Then essentially you spent 10% of it, right? Because, 100 times 10 is 1,000. So you spent 10% of it. So your credit card utilization would be 10%. That means you spent 10% of it. This number you always want to keep. I'm going to be honest with you. If you want your score to ever go up, you want to keep it below 5%. 5%. I know you might say, well, what's the point of having credit if you can't really use it? Well, simply, you're supposed to use the credit, but then you're supposed to pay it off immediately, essentially. So you spend $1,000, then you're supposed to, pay that $1,000 back, like essentially as soon as you buy the thing. 3 days later, pay it back, or pay back most of it. That's the point of it, so that you can draw things for the long haul. So let's say there's a thing, you have $1,000 in credit, but you want a $100 pair of headphones, right? Well, credit is like a rent to own, but that you can do for yourself. So you can have this you can buy it with your credit card immediately, and then you'll owe the credit card company $100. But now here's the cool part. You can pay that $100 in as long as time as you want. The longer you spend, the more interest is going to incur. But you could spend 2 months to pay this off, and now, effectively that's $50 a month. Or you could do it in 4 months. Now it's $25 a month, plus interest, of course. So it gives you the option and flexibility to be able to pay things whenever you can. If you can, especially with more expensive things. Like let's say that $100 to you is a lot of money. Then it allows you to be able to be, not be able to like miss rent or things like that. And you can still get these headphones. I'm not saying how to prioritize your money. I'm just saying it's a good example. And overall, let's say that the same $1,000 and you spend 777 of those dollars, right? Well, the credit card company is going to look at this as a bad thing. Why? Because 777 is almost your entire 1,000. So they actually look at this as you spent 77.7% of your money, right? That's a lot of it. Anytime you spend more than, I'd say 50% of your credit limit, it's a huge red flag. Your points will immediately skyrocket down because they do not want you to basically use the money for those type of reasons. You essentially always want to keep your balance as low as possible. 50% or higher, red. 30 to 50, orange. Don't do that. 10 to 30, I'd say yellow. Pretty solid, but your credit may go down just a little bit. It'll either go down a little bit or stay the same. And 10% or lower, that's pretty green. So you're good there. That's the pretty much overview of credit card utilization. You want to make sure that the amount of credit you are given, all of your cards combined, is always equal to or less than 10%. And I'd say 5% to be safe. You always want to keep those numbers really low in order to mitigate the costs and make sure that you are gonna be in the dark green. You wanna make sure the credit card companies can believe that you're going to pay them back. That's essentially why this area is so important in terms of credit cards. And now we're coming to the big one, okay? Derogatory marks. Derogatory marks is probably the most underrated, most important areas of credit, right? Now, what does derogatory marks mean? Literally, every time that your card you've been as a person written off from a company, like as in, you sent to collections, sent to public records, you didn't pay this bill, you defaulted on this. Anytime that happens, that report goes to the credit bureau. It's almost like when you're a little kid and, the principal's like, I'm putting this on your permanent record. Like, it's that, but for adults, and it's real. Because every single time that a debt collector has to address you, essentially that will go into this list. So some people that look, if they're looking at the derogatory marks, you may see 50 things on there. You may see 20 things on here. You may see 10 things on here. Who knows, right? The important thing to note is that you do have to pay off most of these things. The good news is, and I can even give an example with a Wells Fargo account, is that most times, especially depending on how long the settlement has been going on for, you can settle with these companies for fraction of the cost. Sometimes even like pennies on what you would really be paying. And like maybe they have you on the hook for $1,000, but because it's been 4 years and because like they realize that you're not making a crazy amount of money, they may say, hey, okay, we'll settle for $144. If you pay us that, we'll leave you alone, we'll take it off your record, and everything's squared away. Now, just like we were talking about before, the credit card utilization, you can pay these off as slow as possible. So essentially, as long as you promise to pay these guys off, they will put a note on your record to say you're attempting to pay it off. And that alone will bring up your credit score. So if you have multiple things on the list, just agree to pay them on a payment plan. So that $144, maybe you can't afford that $144. So you can say, hey, can I pay you this $144 in 6 months, in 8 months, or whatever, right? And they'll probably say, yeah, sure, okay, cool. And then as soon as you are starting to do it, it'll put a little note that says you're attempting to pay off your debt. That'll be in the system right here. And as soon as you completely pay it off, then that whole mark will be off your record, right? So then you have one less derogatory mark. And if you have only 3 or 2 of these things, best to get on that like ASAP, because just you attempting to pay it back, and they'll always have a number here as well. So it's super easy. You click on it, it says exactly where the location is, who was it, what was the creditor's name, all of the collector debt information. So it's super detailed, and that's what I love about this app. Fortunately or unfortunately, I don't have any because obviously excellent credit, but it's super apparent and super important to knock this out like ASAP. If you have any derogatory marks, take care of them. Call up the creditor and let them know, hey, I'm gonna pay it back, and we're working on a plan. Let's settle this debt so we can both be happy, because they get money. As long as they get any money, they're gonna be happy. They're like, we didn't expect to get anything really. Let's be honest. Here's an important one right here. It's called age of credit, where it keeps note of all of your accounts and essentially averages them out. So if you have, let's say, a car, and the car you got 4 years ago, well, that's in there. Okay, that's 4 years ago. You got a card and you had that for 1 year. Okay, that's in there. And then let's just say you had those two, right? A card for 1 year and a car for 4 years. They'll average both of those numbers out. So it comes out to about, I don't know, 2.5, 2 3/4, 2 3/4 year. So it'll say that, like, 2 years, 10 months. Bang. If you have 50 accounts, then it'll say the same thing. If you have 9 accounts, it'll say the same thing like me. So age of credit, pretty important, okay? And what this essentially shows is that, are you responsible over a long range of time? Just like in relationships, you want to have the stability and to show different creditors that you're responsible not just for 2 months, but you're responsible for years. So they know, okay, if we end up giving you a lot of money in the future, we know that you're not going to just like go crazy and, go college weekend on it, and you're actually going to still continue to pay us back. That's why this is so important. Don't sleep on this one. This means have cards, especially your starter cards. Like you're going to get cards like the Discover It, the All Credit One cards, Quicksilver, one from Capital One. You're gonna get a lot of cards like this, especially a lot of secured cards, and you want to keep these cards, even though they don't have as much of a limit on them. You still want to keep these cards. And the definition of secured cards, in case somebody's like, "What is a secured card?" is a card where you pay the initial fee. So let's say your credit card limit is going to be $200. That's normally what they start with, right? From 200 to maybe like $1,000. That means you have to pay that initial money. So the credit card company deems it as no risk because obviously you're paying the money. So they're not even contributing anything out of it. So it's no reason why they shouldn't give you a card to start off with, right? You're loaning yourself $200 essentially. So you pay $200 to the credit card company. They say, okay, we'll give you a credit card, and your limit will be exactly how much you gave us. So your limit is $200, and it works just like a credit card. If you buy something, you have to pay it back. And the benefit of this is after your, secured card expires, I guess you could say, you'll get that money back. Plus, normally it'll keep boosting your credit score up so that you can actually get unsecured cards. In which case, the credit card company will give you the money in order to start your card. So, if your limit is, say, $600, you didn't have to supply them with $600 out of your own pocket. Like they'll give you $600 and allow you to, freely use that $600 however you want. And then, of course, you have to pay it back at the end of the month, typically, for the card. So that's the difference between secured and unsecured cards in a nutshell. Maybe I'll make a longer video on that to explain it more in depth. But that's essentially the whole kit and caboodle with that. So age of credit is super important. You want to keep those first cards you have. I just want to keep that in mind. You want to keep those first cards you have, regardless of how low the limit is. Because trust me, I've had my first cards had literally $200 in terms of spending limit. So one of them, I couldn't keep it around too long. I ended up having to upgrade it. But the other one, I still have it to this day in my account with $200 as the spending limit. So, yeah, always keep these old cards simply because of that. Like, it will drop your score dramatically if you get rid of an super old card, especially if that's like one of the oldest cards you have and your newer cards are like super new. And it can really bring up your score if you keep these old cards just to keep them, basically. Like you don't have to ever use them because obviously they're not really practical, but just keep them in your account. Total accounts. This is one that a lot of people probably didn't even think that was important. Total accounts means every account that you've ever had, right? So this includes everything: cars, boats, yachts, auto loans, credit cards, student loans, literally every account that you've ever thought of that you ever had to pay somebody in loans, in time. Like you didn't put all the money up front. Everything like that is in this system. Pretty much, I wouldn't be shocked if like even Best Buy purchases like Rent-A-Way is in there, Any account that you have to pay somebody over a period of time is going to be in here. The more accounts you have like this, the better, actually. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but it's the better because they want to know that you have experience doing this. It's kind of one of those things like you need job experience to get a job. You need, girl experience in order to get girls. It makes perfect sense when you think of it from the perspective of the more experience you have in that thing, the more you're leveled up and you're going to get, the mindset of, oh, I know how this thing works. So they want you to know, oh, well, you know what's going to happen if you don't pay your credit off. You do know what's going to happen if you are consistent and you're good, as you can see above. So the total accounts is definitely going to be that. The good thing to notice about total accounts is that it includes all accounts with your name on it. So even if you have a shared mortgage or shared car, things like that, they will still fall into the total accounts. And you're, even if you're the co-signee or you're the like a partner into something like that, a firm or things like that, it still counts in total accounts. Closed accounts also, as you can see from here, also count. So even if you had something and but you paid it off at the end, so one of those derogatory marks, but you paid it off, that still counts as a total account as well. So you can have a very high number of total accounts. And ideally, I think their number is 20, I think is a green when it's in green. Yeah, I believe 20 is when it's in the green. So you want to have 20 or more accounts in your life because it's a lifelong thing in order to be green in this. But remember, these last two areas are low impact. So they don't really affect your credit score as much. They're more like just good for practices to help the other areas out. Because if you have a lot of accounts, well, then your payment history, which is the most important, is going to go up because you have multiple things reporting to the credit bureau every month to say you're paying your thing off. So even if you just like that's why ideally, I'm just going to say like a great tip. And I hope if you've watched this long through the video, then you're going to get a beautiful tip that really is going to help you out with your credit journey, is to have multiple accounts. So have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 credit cards, 2 auto loans, whatever you want to have. But like have at least a couple accounts, 5 accounts, and have them paid off completely. So in terms of your credit cards, have them with a zero balance. Zero. Not $14, not $7. Don't believe that myth. I clearly have excellent credit, so I know what I'm talking about. Don't believe the myth, so banks can get a couple extra cents out of you. Okay? Have a zero balance. If you have 3, 4, 5 cards with zero balance, that means every month they will report back to the credit bureau, and your payment history will go up because basically they're reporting 100%, 100%, 100%. So even if your score was a 73, think of it like a math test, right? In school, you have maybe 6 tests before the exam, right? In college, they do a cumulative average, and it's exactly the same they do with the credit cards. So in terms of your payment history, it uses the same cumulative average. So even if your score is something low like a 73, if you keep getting 100 and 100 and 100 and 100 and 100 and 100, your score is going to naturally start to progress up. 73, 74, 75, 76. And most likely you haven't had that much, that many payment histories. So it's probably going to go up by 2s or 3s or 4s even maybe. So it'll be 73, 75, 77, 79. So the only thing that's holding you back from a 99% is time. Because if you keep these cards for even, I don't know, 1, 2, 3 years, you're going to have a 99 eventually. And that's the secret to getting high credit, because with that 99, well, now you've beaten the odds. You know what I mean? You're going to have a good in this, and that's going to bring your credit score up dramatically. And then boom, bang, boom, everything else falls in line. You get what I'm saying? So make sure that you have a lot of accounts, but you're maintaining these accounts. Don't just have credit cards and be spending willy-nilly out of those. Credit cards are essentially meant to make purchases so you can pay them off essentially immediately. Ideally immediately. You know what I mean? You buy something for $100, pay that thing off literally as soon as you can. So as soon as you have that $100 in your account, pay it off. Like treat it like a debit card where it's immediately out of your account. Like when you buy something with a debit card, the transaction happens and the money's not in your account anymore. Treat credit cards the same exact way. Like I spent this $100, it's not in my account anymore. You know what I mean? And I promise you'll be a way better spender. Hard inquiries, probably my favorite. And I'll even show you mine so you can know that I'm not capping. Okay, so what is hard inquiries? Pretty self-explanatory. Every time that you request, an auto loan, a house mortgage, anything like that, or even a new credit card, the credit card bureau is going to look at your account and they're going to review it and they're going to say, oh, blah, blah, blah. And they report back to whoever's asking for the creditor and say, is this account good? Is this account okay? Let me see exactly where they've missed payments. Let me see all their defaults, all this stuff. Each time that a big name, a big creditor does that, it shows up as a hard inquiry. So it's a bad thing. It's a bad thing when they do that. You can't just keep, asking for cards and asking for, cars and things of that nature, because, it's going to reflect negatively on your credit report. The good news is, as you can see from the middle of the screen, they last for about 2 years. So if you're smart about it, you kind of get all of your things in a row. You get what I'm saying? So like, let's say you're starting your credit card journey, you don't really know too much about, credit, and you're like, what am I going to do? Well, I'm gonna have a new video coming pretty soon about starter cards, but you're gonna want to get yourself a nice secured card, okay? And I'd even say get 2 secured cards, because you want to have, that pairing. So then that way you're gonna have 2 hard inquiries on your account, right? Or you should have 2 hard inquiries at that point. You maybe have a lot more, because obviously, but you're gonna have those 2 hard inquiries on your account. Then when you get those 2 secure cards, you at least can start your credit journey, off on the right foot. Later on down the line, I'd say maybe 6 months, 8 months, whatever later, when you've shown yourself to be responsible with those 2 secured cards, then you can request, say, another card that is not secured, an unsecured card with a medium limit on it. Boom. I'd go with Discover. That's just my personal takeaway. Good approval ratings, and they're going to be probably the best in terms of customer service, especially starting your credit card journey. Then you have 3 harder inquiries in your account, because remember, they last for 2 years. Then you just keep progressing up and up and up and up and up until you get to like actual cards, like actually really, usable, good cards that have reward points and things of that nature. I got lucky in my journey where my first unsecured card happened to have rewards on it. So I have 1% for certain things, 2% back for other things. And it worked out perfectly, because like then I got the experience why people use credit over, just debit cards. I'm like, why do people use, credit cards over debit cards? And then I realized, like, oh, the rewards, you get money back from using credit cards. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Now I see why people use them. So credit is not only just important because you can buy a house and buy cars and buy things of that nature, but it's also important because you literally can get money for spending money. Like, make that make sense. That's why credit is probably the most OP thing you can do. It's like the smartest way you can spend money while spending money, because you already have to spend money anyway, right? Like, you can buy it with cash, you can buy it with your debit card, you can buy it with credit card, you can buy it with a lot of things. But why not use the way that is essentially going to give you the highest return on your investment? You're gonna go spend $100 anyway, so why not get $2 back, or $3 back, or $4 back, or $5 back on that transaction, when otherwise, if you spend it with cash, you'd get $0 back. You know what I mean? So credit is super important, and I'm glad that I walked you through all 6 areas of the credit factors that are going to influence the way that your credit score is going to be evaluated. This is a pretty short video. I probably could go over each and every area like super duper in depth, but that would be a super long video. That would be like an hour long. So I'll probably make a video on different areas that are most vital, but just keep remembering that you can check this as much as possible. I would advise every single person to, download the app and see your different areas. Focus on payment history, credit card utilization, and derogatory marks. So boom, bang, and boom. Because if you have these 3 areas in check, I can almost guarantee you that your credit score is going to start to rise dramatically. I mean, I'm not exaggerating when I say I went from 500 to 761. Okay. Like, literally, they wrote me, the Credit Karma team actually wrote me and said, you're like an example of why we do what we do, because, and just the fact that I can monitor everything. So when I got a derogatory mark, I would just go into it and I'd be like, oh, let me pay these things off, or let me do this, let me knock that out. I mean, when you can see this derogatory mark say 0, it's no better feeling in the world than that. 0. Like, I owe no company money. Nobody. not the banks, not, student loans, not some car, not, like I owe no person money that we have to dispute how much I owe you. Like the only people I owe money to is this 3% of credit that I have, which is extremely low, right? So I want you guys to join me on the top with the excellent category. And as always, if you have comments and you have questions and things of that nature, leave them in the comment section below. Seriously, I wanted to answer your questions. If somebody sent you this video and shared it to you, so said, maybe it'll help you out a little bit, a little credit coaching, then share this video with somebody else that might need it, because it's super helpful information and it's free. I'm not charging anything for it. A subscribe would be nice and a like would be even better. But as always, you guys have an awesome day. See ya.